We are thrilled to have our next speaker, Erika Sanchez. Erika is the daughter of Mexican immigrants, a poet, essayist, and fiction writer. She is the author of New York Times bestseller, I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. Also, a 2017 finalist for the National Book Award of Young People's Literature. Among other works, Erika has also published a poetry collection, Lessons on Expulsion, a finalist for the PEN America Open Book Award. She is a 2017-2019 Princeton Arts Fellow. Ladies and gentlemen, Erika Sanchez.
My name is Erika L. Sanchez, and I am not your perfect Mexican daughter. Toni Morrison, my favorite writer of all time, said, if there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. That's what I did with I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. I grew up reading white texts. There was rarely any book I could relate to. Most at my disposal were about middle-class white children living in the suburbs. I adored Judy Blume. I read Super Fudge, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret. And though I enjoyed getting lost in these worlds, their problems were completely foreign to me. Also, how do these people have summer homes? Why do they talk to their parents about their feelings? In high school, I was lucky enough to have found the house on Mango Street. It was the first time I had ever read about people like me. It was inspiring and comforting, but that simply wasn't enough. It came out the year that I was born, 1984. And there hadn't been anything like it since. I was desperate for more. I wanted to see myself in literature. And as an avid reader, I looked everywhere. Where were all the messed up brown girls? Las malcriadas, the Latino weirdos. I decided that if they didn't exist, I was going to create them. When I say that writing saved my life, I'm not exaggerating. I wrote the bulk of my novel when I was recovering from one of the worst depressions I've ever experienced. At the age of 30, I began a very stressful PR job. Not only did I have to constantly travel to New York, my boss was the worst person I've ever met. Seriously, she was awful. As a writer, it was not at all what I imagined for my career. But I needed to pay my bills. Also, who gave me the great idea to get a master's degree in poetry? A few months into the job, and I had a complete nervous breakdown. The stress triggered depression and anxiety so severe that I became suicidal. It took over my life. For months, I couldn't write. In fact, I could hardly function. Even taking a shower was a monumental task. I hardly ate. Everything felt pointless. I felt that what I loved most in this life had been taken away from me. As I struggled out of this existential hole, with the help of therapy and medication, I slowly found my way back to my work. Eventually, I quit my job and latched onto my writing. It was my life raft. I found meaning again in the story of 15-year-old Julia Reyes. I became consumed by the novel. I wrote and wrote with desperation. For months, it was all I thought about, all I did. I was able to work through my mental illness by writing about it. Like Julia, I had also been a suicidal teenager, and it was cathartic to process that experience through fiction. Mental illness is not something often discussed in our communities, though it's something that plagues us. According to the Centers for Disease Control, Latina teens currently have the highest suicide rates among all adolescent groups in the U.S. 15% of Latina adolescents have attempted suicide, and nearly 26% have considered suicide. Yet this is not something that we ever talk about. We pretend it doesn't exist. Additionally, there's a severe lack of mental health resources for people to receive the help they need. We're in desperate need of Spanish-speaking providers and culturally competent care. I personally didn't have access to a therapist until I hurt myself and was hospitalized at the age of 15. What can art do? What is the point of telling our stories? Why should we care if these types of books exist? Part of this, I believe, is to create empathy, to connect with other human beings and understand where they are coming from. When women, especially women of color, are able to see themselves mirrored in a book, there is immense power in that. I see literature as a way to express possibilities and nuances, transcend borders, and invoke wonder and awe. Literature creates a sense of belonging and lets us live more fully and deeply. Through transmitting these stories, we are transmitting truth. Books can literally save lives. When I wrote I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, I had many hopes. I wanted teen girls to see themselves in Julia Reyes. I wanted them to feel understood and less alone. I also hoped that through this story, adults would learn the signs of depression, which would help them intervene and give young people support. Words can help us heal. Since the novel came out last October, I've received an overwhelming amount of responses from Latinas of all ages who are grateful to finally identify with a protagonist in a story. Many have told me that they've never felt so understood. This is exactly why I spent 5 years writing this book. In her famous TED Talk, Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie talks about the danger of a single story. What happens when complicated, multifaceted human beings are allowed only one narrative. She gives the example of Africans solely portrayed as poor and starving, and how inaccurate and damaging that is. What is the single story of the Latinx community? Latinos, particularly undocumented immigrants, are so often negatively portrayed in the media. Our president vilifies us time and time again. Mexicans are depicted as border-crossing criminals. I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, I hope, is an antidote to that. I hope that the Vegas family shows the resilience of our communities. I hope that the novel demonstrates the beauty of our culture. The response to my book has surpassed all of my expectations. It was a National Book Award finalist and has been on the New York Times bestsellers list for 5 weeks. So far, I've sold over 63,000 copies. The book has also been optioned for film, which means it will reach even more people. I feel very fortunate that my words have touched so many lives. I'm Buddhist, and as a Buddhist, I believe that suffering is an inevitable part of life. There is no doubt that as long as we exist, we will be confronted with challenges. What is most important, however, is how we respond to that suffering, How can we turn poison into medicine? My life has been at times excruciating, to be quite honest. Living with bipolar disorder has been a struggle since I was a child. But what I aim to do with this experience is to transform it into something